Welcome to the latest episode of A Life in Film with casting director Manuel Puro. If you enjoy this episode, please review and share this podcast. It makes a huge difference. We're also on Patreon, TikTok and Instagram if you'd like to support us and get more content. Thank you. Our guest's career as a casting director started with a dozen handwritten letters accompanied by a KitKat and a note saying, "Since I've supplied the KitKat, you could give me a break." One of the people that replied was casting director Jeremy Zimmermann, of Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves and Willow fame. Manny assisted Jeremy on many projects including Del Toro's Hellboy 2 and soon found his feet as a casting director. His credits include multiple collaborations with Duncan Jone on Mute starring Alexander Skarsgård and Paul Rudd and The Wonderful Moon starring Sam Rockwell. From Born to be Blue starring Ethan Hawke to the Shaun the Sheep Movie Farmageddon, Manny has never shied away from making bold and exciting choices. I have him to thank for casting me in several movies, my first villain as Iago in a modern day adaptation of Othello, and most notably my first lead in a feature film in BAFTA Nominated Northern Soul. So for this, Manny, I will always be hugely grateful. Thank you. Our guest today is casting director Manuel Puro.
There you are.
Yes, you can see me. How's it going, man?
Yeah, very good, very good.
I'm trying to think the last time I actually would have seen you in person. It would have been years ago. Absolutely years ago. I can't even think.
Yeah, it's so weird how it happens, doesn't it? That sometimes you know, we saw each other all the time for a period.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, it's just you stop that, and then, but then it happens again. It's you know, you always go in these cycles with just with anybody, I suppose, but with actors in particular.
Sure.
You know, I can only cast the roles I'm given, and it's and sometimes there's certain types, and you think, oh yeah, I'm seeing the same actors week after week after week because it's all the same role. But then
it's funny, isn't it?
Yeah, sometimes it just goes it just sort of moves around that. Yeah, are you all right? You're well, you're looking good.
I'm good. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, no, I'm really good actually. Now we're through the whole dreaded COVID and everything else, and auditions are coming back, and everything's a bit busier now, so it's all good. It's all good. Have you did you struggle through, or were you all right through?
Yeah, no,
because people don't think of casting directors when they think obviously the actors aren't working, but the casting directors aren't as well. It's just as bad for you guys.
Pity poor casting directors. We weren't working either. No, it was I think some of them were actually, some of them on kind of commercials, the ones that did commercials were working, and there were a few little kind of projects, but it was you know, I think I'm really lucky. I live out in the countryside, and I love my kids. I love spending time with my kids, so it was kind of really, you know, we were kind of all right. We found it quite easy to, you know, to isolate, and during our hour a day out, we could go into the countryside, and it was really nice. And then I've been doing this kind of, I'd started years ago. I started these online acting kind of, not really they're not acting courses, but they're just self-tape courses. So they just exploded. So I was really busy with those, and in fact I was able to employ a lot of casting directors. I had lots of casting directors hosting their own courses, and then I was running a lot of courses myself, and it just kept a lot of actors busy and a lot of casting people busy. So it was so in a way it was kind of, or I kind of, we survived. You
found a good angle there, and it is nice as well to have that. If your family and everything else, it's kind of almost a forced excuse to then go to spend time and not actually have to work, and well, you know, and then finding things like that is great, like a sort of side hobby as well.
Yeah. So, you know, it was, you know, and like I said, I started that way before the pandemic, years before. So it was all kind of set up. So it was really easy just to kind of expand it a little bit.
Nice.
And so, yeah, that was good. And yeah, like I said, I think compared to many, I think we had it pretty easy. Just, and especially, you know, especially our living kind of conditions. We have a really small, modest house, but it's in a nice, wide open area, so it's we never felt that we were you know, I think if I was living in a city, or especially in an apartment or somewhere, I think that sense of being really closed in would be really hard to take. But yeah, no, we managed to get away with it.
Nice.
Yeah, it was all right, and it's good that things are picking up as well. I mean, obviously, you know, for a few dark moments, you were thinking, is anything ever going to happen again? It was like, what? How do we get out of this hole? But you know, you can kind of, things have absolutely sort of started.
100%. Thank God. Because there are those, you know, it was quite nice at first. It was one of those things where you're like, well, everyone's not working, and that's the first. you know, like even Tom Cruise is having a day off today. And then, you know, obviously then people start working again. You're like, okay, right, where are the auditions? And then the anxiety comes back in. But now it seems to be in full flow, and it's nice to be doing tapes and going in for stuff finally again. But I think this was the kind of, I don't know how you feel, but this felt like the final straw for, obviously people were going towards the way of doing tapes anyway. And I think the pandemic now makes it, everyone's had to do tapes, and it's a lot easier, and you can do it from across the other side of the world and everything else. But for you, does it feel like it's less and less in the room and it's more on tape these days?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd really embraced self-taping ages ago. So maybe it's because I live out in the country. So, and I love coming into London. I love kind of going in and being in the city and then coming back to my little bolt hole out in the countryside. But I think because I've lived out of town for quite a while, when in the early days of self-taping, I really embraced it. I thought, wow, this is great. I don't necessarily need to go into London just yet. I don't want to not ever go in and never meet actors in the room. But I think I really enjoyed, I think I embraced it probably more than most, and tried to, and it really transformed for me. It transformed the way I cast, because I could throw a much wider net than before. You know, there's still a limit there's a kind of physical limit to how many people you can see in the room for any given job. But with self-tapes, I found out, actually, you know what, it's much easier, and I could see so many more actors and so many different kinds of actors that I wouldn't have a chance to see. So I'd embraced it sort of way before the pandemic, and I was doing, I think I was really focusing, certainly step one of every project was really heavily, you know, using self-tapes. So in a way, I think it's kind of good. It has accelerated. I think other people have sort of caught on, I suppose, or at least they're seeing the benefits of it. And they're sort of, you know, again, during the pandemic, when I was running courses for other casting directors, you know, I could hear how they were talking about self-tapes. And at the beginning, they were like, you know, hearing about how they would use self-tapes very much in a marginal sort of way. You know, oh, we might give out, you know, we might ask 5 or 6 people to self-tape for something. But then by the end, after a year or two, you could kind of see, actually, no, it's not a secondary way of auditioning. It's a really great first step. But actually seeing actors in the room is absolutely everything for me. That's you know, so even though I'm a massive champion of self-tapes, it's not, I don't want that to be the be all and end all of casting. It's still really important to get a short list of people in the room and start messing around with them and playing with them, and have a director there to direct them, and then even recall them again after that. So it's so yeah, to be honest, it hasn't really, and if anything, it's helped me, because it means that self-tapes are far more are used far more often, which is what I've been doing for a while anyway. But yeah, I definitely, I hate casting just from self-tape. I kind of rail against that, even if a director says it's just a one-line part, we can just cast it from self-tape. I still try to get that actor in the room with the director, just to see each other's eyes and see each other's
100%.
You know, I still think that's really critical. That human chemistry just in a room is you know, you can't really predict that. So I think you've got to see people in the room. So yeah, no, it's good.
I think it's always strange whenever I've been cast through a self-tape but not even had the chance to go into the room. I always think that's a bit strange. Yeah. You just think there's all you could spend a week doing that tape. You could be awful. Like,
sure, no, I know. It's I mean, I know sometimes actors do. I have a friend who's an actor who, but she lives at the other side of the world, thank God, which is great. But we go on holiday. Our families go on holiday together, and there was, I mean, this was quite a few years ago, 7 or 8 years ago, and we were on holiday together, and she had a self-tape come in, and it's like, hey, I'm a casting director, I can help you do your self-tape, and my God, it took about 7 or 8 hours to do this kind of one little scene, you know, and I'm trying to be patient and trying to go, yeah, no, this is my holiday, but I'll help you because I'm a casting director. And obviously, and it took 7 or 8 hours for it to get it right. And it really made me real, you know, it just made me realize, actually, I mean, it's great when you get it wrong, no one has to ever see that with your self-tape. But at the same time, if it's taking you 40 or 50 takes, or it's taking you hours to get one little take right, then that's not going to work on set, or it's not going to work in the audition room. So it's you know, again, that is kind of one of the reasons why you do want to get someone in the audition room and just make sure that they can do it reasonably quickly. But it's definitely a two-way thing as well. I think the actor also needs to be comfortable with the director. It's and just make sure you can communicate with each other, and that you're you know, it's just, you want the actor to feel comfortable when they turn up on set, and for it not to be this suddenly they see everybody and meet people. It's just if you've just had even a few minutes beforehand, just to make a little bit of a personal connection, it just helps. Then, you know, months later or weeks later, when you turn up on set, at least you've met the person and you kind of, you know each other a little bit. I think it just I think it's all
I think that helps hugely. I really that's funny that you say that, though. It's good that you got to see the other side of it and really see the pain that we go through, the hours of anguish.
I know, and it's so hard. I mean, obviously, you know, you can see just fluffing up the lines, but then also the performance and trying to get the performance. But it's you know, I've done so much now with these courses on self-tapes, and it's really I do advise actors just to, you know, it's kind of 3 is your magic number. Try and do 3 takes, 3 full takes, and be confident that when you've done 3 takes, that's it. Forget about, you know, just pick one of those. Look at those 3. Don't keep going, and don't kind of aim for this sort of perfection or this perfect version of the role, because it doesn't really exist anyway. And we will, and it's really just to trust the process, trust that we will see what we need to see from one of your takes, one of those 3 takes. We'll see enough of what you bring to the role and how the role fits on you, and most of the time it really will be just enough. It'll be enough for us to see, and so you don't need to be slogging away for hours and hours.
Oh,
no, it's easier said
that. That's good advice. So I'll take that on.
It is a bit easier said than done, I'm sure. If it was a role that you're really, you know, you can't help but kind of keep going. But I think it's a sort of a discipline that if you're able to go, look, I'll do 3 takes, and then you've got less to choose from, because I think the choosing part is the bit as well that can really send you in a spiral where when you've got so many different takes and you're trying to figure out, oh, which one do I really like? But if you give yourself fewer choices, just go with 3 takes. And I've kind of got this phrase, pick the one you hate the least, because there's probably not one. I mean, if you've got one that you love, then that's fantastic. Pick that one, of course. But if you're gonna hate all of them, and so, but just pick the one that you hate the least and just send it and get on with the rest of your life, because we will see what we need to see. I mean, we really will. And then we bring you into the room, and you know, but it's just the first step, and nobody really knows who the character is or what the character is going to be like. So for you to kind of keep doing it over and over again and kind of just making these little fine-tune adjustments, none of that really matters. It's kind of just that very first instinct that we see, that first kind of interpretation that we see, that we kind of go, yeah, that looks kind of interesting. Now let's bring the person into the room, and then you know, then the director can get to work with you a bit and tweak things around. But I think it's even on set. I mean, you know, even then once you've got your audition and you've won the role and you've been cast, things still kind of change, don't they? Anyway, between that point and turning up on set, and then it all depends on who else you're working with and what their vibe is and what their chemistry's like. So everything's always sort of changing. There's never kind of that one perfect way of performing anything. So I think if you just get that into your head, it just simplifies things. Just just do 3 and then get out of there. Get.
I'm gonna give that a go, definitely. And the next time, I find that I've got this weird thing, and I guess it's a good way to be. But I'm dreadful at auditions in person. I occasionally I'll like do a really good audition. I'll be like, okay, I actually thought that was. I stayed calm and didn't get too nervous. And with tapes, I do what every other actor does. I do 1,000 takes. I spend a day doing it. It's hours, 8 hours, 9 hours doing this tape. And then you have to sieve through the thousands of tapes that you've done to find the one good one. And then, but I do actually find that I will genuinely do about 30, 40 takes, and I'll delete the bad ones as I go, but I'll have to then go through them all. And it is always the last 2 or 3, which I need to, obviously, that I warm up over time and I hopefully get better towards the end, but I need to learn to get from point A to B quicker, and then I won't have to do 1,000 takes and try and do it in the 3, like you say.
Yeah, it's also dependent. Listen, every actor is kind of different as well, and I know some actors that do need warming up in the audition, and in a way, when you know that as well, you can kind of tell the director before they come in. You can say, listen, let's just do 2 or 3 really quick takes, because this actor will be terrible for these 2 or 3 takes, but then they warm into it. And there's one actor in particular, I won't mention any names, but you know, it's kind of, once I knew that, it was easy. You get them in and you do a few takes, and then you can just see then all the tension kind of leaves their body, and then they're brilliant. But if you only gave them 2 or 3 takes like you normally give an actor, then you would never cast this person. So it's good prior knowledge. But if you're getting stressed out by doing loads and loads and loads of takes, if it doesn't stress you out, then do loads of takes. But if it is stressing you out, then just try the different way. Try and do 3 takes and you're done, and just see how it feels. I think it's I think it's good. I mean, it's really good practice for then when you're in the audition room, because again, you'll feel more comfortable when the director moves on to the next scene, instead of, again, you won't expect to do 30 takes in the audition room. And then definitely if you then get the job as well, sometimes the pace of shooting is so fast that if you're able to confidently go in and do 2 or 3 takes, and when the AD or the director says, right, we're going to move on, if you're like, yeah, great, let's go, you don't necessarily want to be the actor that says, oh, can I do one more? Can we do another one? Or can we keep going? Because sometimes actors will do this and they'll do it all the time. And you can see the schedule is kind of going, and everyone's just thinking, oh no, come on, you want the actor to be happy and confident that they've done well. But if an actor keeps saying, oh, can we just do one more? You do get that sense that, oh, they're not happy, and that's not a good thing. So yeah, I think if you can be happy after doing fewer takes.
100%. And I think also, if the director says he's got it, that's that's his job. It's not the actor's job to be like, we haven't got it yet. And I do find, like, saying that obviously I'm not very good at auditions, on the occasion I am fine, but then I hit a different gear when I get a job. It's almost like I'm here and I'm being paid and I'm an actor, and I'm for some reason auditions is a different, I'm in neutral trying to get into first. But when you've already got the job, I find like there's no problem going to that from A to B, but it's the audition process that I think with a lot of actors it just stresses them out, and maybe that's why taping is another reason it can be good, because you're not as intimidated because you've got the time and you're not screwing it up in front of anyone. It's definitely a different process though. I think being in the room sometimes can be great, because as you say, you can look in the casting director's eyes, the actor's eyes, and there's a connection there. You can have a chat and you can kind of calm yourself down by having that moment before you do the read. But yeah, there's pros and cons to them both, I guess.
I think the other way of doing it, I suppose, is to actually, when you get an audition, convince yourself that actually that is you have got the job. There's a fantastic American actor called Michael Kostroff, who's been in lots of, he was in The Wire, and he plays a lot of, you'd kind of recognize him, but he has this great kind of a great saying, and he gives little courses again about the audition process. But he just persuades himself that he has got the role, and he sees this as an opportunity. When he has an audition, sees it as this opportunity to just one time only be the role, kind of be the character, and because he loves acting, that's obviously it's what he wants to do. It's such a thrill then that I've got this one chance to do this role, that I've been given, even if it's just an audition. I mean, obviously then if you get the role and you end up getting paid for it, then that's great. That's the cherry on the top. But if you're able to somehow Jedi mind yourself to kind of go, yeah, I've actually got the role, and I'm just going to really enjoy giving this one performance. There's only ever going to be one time that I give this performance. Then you just put everything into that audition, and you just kind of, hopefully you enjoy it and enjoy the process of kind of going, look, here's my character that I've invented, and just think of it as that. And as soon as that audition finishes, then that's it, you played the role, and now you're going to move on to something else. It's just trying to persuade your mind that it's not a job interview, but instead it is just your one-off performance that you've got this opportunity to do. But again, I know it's easier said than done. I think it's just training your mind so that you don't see it as such a big deal, I suppose. But anyway, listen, there's all sorts of psychology going on, isn't there?
That's great advice, though. I think that is, because it is the mindset, isn't it? I think, or tell me if I'm wrong, but I think a casting director can sense desperation. So if you go in there and you're confident, you're like, I've already got this. It's fine.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, when I go in, I have to pitch for my jobs as well. I'll like every casting director, we all go through the same process, same as an actor. We kind of audition for our jobs, and so I'll go into a pitch, and I will convince. Whenever I go in for a pitch, and even if I know I'm meeting, and in fact, when you're going for a pitch, normally I meet other casting directors kind of outside in the waiting room, in the way that you guys will meet actors that you might see over and over again over the course of time. You'll see the same actors in the waiting room going, oh yeah, you're going up for this role as well, and you get to know people like that. But I know some casting people that are also in the queue to go in and pitch for the job that I'm going for. But as soon as I get into that pitch, I am convinced I have got the job. I kind of feel, and I speak the way I even speak, right, we're going to do this, and we can go here and look at these people, and who do you like out of these actors, person, why don't we make an offer to this person? It's kind of like I've bamboozled them into thinking that they've already given me the job. And I'm sure sometimes they're kind of like, what the hell's going on? Has he got the job? Have we given him the job? Did no one tell us? And, you know, and I don't know, you just think, well, yeah, it's my job. It's, you know, this is, I want to, you know, yeah, it's my job. And this is, I'm going to, in all my meetings, I'm going to enthuse as much as if I've got the job. Sometimes it doesn't work, but often, you know, listen, it works pretty often. It's, you know, it's, yeah, you know, you just got to kind of commit, don't you? And go, yeah, this is the job. And even the pitch meetings is the job as well. It's all part of the job. So yeah, it's anyway, it's,
well, if I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that you started getting into casting in sort of the late 90s. I'd like to ask where did that come from? Where at what point were you suddenly like, oh, I want to do this?
Yeah, it was really yeah, my origin story is kind of really random. I mean, it's one of these kind of strange things. I was I came to London. I was born and bred in Manchester, so I kind of grew up in Manchester. And and when I was doing my A levels, I had a really great economics teacher, and so I thought I wanted to go and do economics at university. And it was kind of back in the day when it was really not easy to go to university, but you know, I got a grant to go to university. So I got paid kind of money to pay for things. I didn't have to pay anything, so it was kind of easy to make that leap. I didn't have to get into any kind of debt. And I was lucky enough, I came down to the London School of Economics, and I was doing an economics degree there. And, you know, LSE is like a really good school for economics. But as soon as I so I moved down to London, went to the LSE, after about a week or so, I kind of realized I hated economics, and that I think my A-level teacher was fantastic. But actually, the subjects of economics I found just really weird and really dry and not what I was expecting at all. But here I was kind of, my rent was being paid, I had a bit of money to live on, I was living in London, so I kind of kept up. I did the bare minimum to stay in my course, but I knew I was not going to work in that field, and I knew I wasn't going to you know, yeah, I just didn't want to pursue economics. So I used to, because I was living in London, there was a fantastic cinema down in King's Cross at the time called the Scala Cinema, and the Scala Cinema was run by a film producer, and it's a little bit like the Prince Charles Cinema at the moment. It's just off Leicester Square, where it would show older films, and it would show really quirky films and lots of foreign films, and so each day it was almost like a little mini film festival every single day. So every day there would be 3 or 4 new films, and you pay a student rate. It was so cheap, you could kind of turn up at noon, pay a student rate, and then you could stay inside the building. As long as you didn't leave the building, you were allowed to stay until the end of the day, until like 11 o'clock at night. So I used to kind of think, well, you know, I loved movies anyway, just like any normal person, I suppose. Yeah, I always enjoyed going to the cinema, but this was a real kind of escape. I just thought, instead of going to university and you know, just sort of turning up to lectures which were boring me, I would just hide away. I would go spend, you know, pay my pound. I would take sandwiches with me so I could stay inside the building all day, and I would and I'd watch 2 or 3 different films, or 4 films. I'd watch every single film they showed on that particular day, and I would just do it obsessively. I would just go back day after day after day, and just be watching movies, and kind of, it was, I realize now it was my education. It was kind of like a sort of a film school, but it was just me hiding away from real life, just watching films. Every so often I'd go into university, do the bare minimum so I didn't get kicked out. But really, I just enjoyed watching these films. And I had a little diary that I used to write the names of the film, the name of the director, and the name of actors. So I don't know why I did that, but I just thought I'd keep a little note of these things.
Yeah.
Just I don't know, just to, I guess people do, you know, they like, you can obsess over football statistics or things like this, but I just thought I'm going to keep tabs of producers' names and just people's names that were associated with some of these films. So I did this more or less for 3 years, every day for 3 years. My degree lasted for 3 years. And so apart from a few, you know, days away and a few times when I would go into university, I was just, I mean, it was a pure fantasist kind of life of I'm just going to go to the movies, and that's going to be what I do. And at the end of 3 years, when I was going into university to just, you know, keep my foot in, a lot of people that I knew, they were all turning up in suits. They already had jobs set up in the city. Everyone was like, they were ready for the next stage, and I was there again as usual in my little t-shirt, kind of going, oh bloody hell, this is going to finish soon. I've got my degree course is going to finish after, you know, what am I going to do? And again, I really had no idea. And even during this sort of 3 years at the Scala, I wasn't really thinking that I could do anything, you know, that I wasn't thinking I want to be a filmmaker or anything. It was a pure escape. But I started to kind of panic a little bit and think, oh, what am I going to do? And I thought, oh, I'm going to just go to the cinema and not think about it anymore. And I think there was a particular time they were doing like a little mini Fellini season, and there was a Fellini film that I hadn't seen and that I was really looking forward to. And what was it called? Donald Sutherland. Casanova. It was Fellini's Casanova, starring Donald Sutherland, and I hadn't seen it, and I thought, oh yeah, I'm looking forward to this. And I remember then going and watching it again, just head in the sand. I'm going to just watch this film and not think about my life at all. And as I was watching that film in particular, that was the light bulb moment where I was thinking, well, how does it? I hated the film. I really hated it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was just one of the, it's kind of like, I hate this. It's so stupid, but. So how does this happen? Who makes these decisions that this film should get made? People, they seem to be having a ball making it. Donald Sutherland seemed to be enjoying it. It's like there must be some money involved. There must be people getting paid, people making a living out of it. Obviously, I'd seen all people's credits at the end, but I never really made that kind of connection about it being a livelihood. But that was my light bulb moment, thinking, well, I really love going to the cinema. I love films. It looks like a fun job. It looks like a job that you would kind of enjoy. So maybe that's what I should do. And it was that moment of, yeah, I want to explore that world. This is what I'm interested in. And it was back in the day, like you say, kind of the late 80s. Kind of late 80s. There was no internet. There was no kind of real resources on how to get into the film industry. So I just thought I'd have to figure it out myself and figure out how to do it. And so in London, I got the Yellow Pages, which I don't know if you'll even remember.
Should we explain to the audience the Yellow Pages?
Yellow Pages, which is a directory, a book that you had all the.
I remember it. We used to use it as a doorstop.
Yeah, I mean, it was this massive thick book. And so the London Yellow Pages was this massive thick book that you would, if you were looking for any kind of business, like a plumber or an electrician or anything at all, they would have an entry, a phone number and a little address in the Yellow Pages. So I got the Yellow Pages and I went to F for film. And there were a few pages there. There were a few pages filled with under the category film, and some of it was kind of film processing, like the old photographs and just film processing, but some of it I could see were kind of film companies that I'd kind of recognized from films that I'd seen over the last 3 years, and some were just people's names. And so I just thought, right, well, here's my directory. Here are all people involved in the film business. Obviously I didn't write to the ones that I knew were just kind of processing film, because that wasn't what I was into, but I just started writing to people from the Yellow Pages, kind of randomly. I did them in little groups of 10, just to sort of see. And I first kind of group of 10, I just sent a letter and I didn't get any responses. And I thought, I'm going to have to be a bit more inventive if this is the film business, and people are visual in this business. So I had to be a bit more inventive and come up with different things. And I came up with all sorts of madcap schemes to try and get noticed. And I kept sending them to all different, to these little clumps of 10 people at a time. And every so often I'd get someone sending something back. This is not the way to get into this business, getting nasty letters back from people that were just ridiculous. But anyway.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just kind of weird stuff. But I was kind of pushing, I was kind of just trying to be inventive and trying to.
What kind of thing would you do, like when you say inventive stuff?
There was a time with one of the weird ones, I suppose, that didn't really work on that. I did get into trouble was I used to send I sellotaped 10p into it with a letter, because it was at the time, if you went to a phone box, you'd put a 10p into the phone box to make a phone call. So I used to put a little 10p and said, look, I've supplied a 10p, so you can just give me a phone call. It won't cost you anything. Again, this was kind of before the days of mobile phones and things. It was just sort of stupid gimmicky things. And
so they'd remember it though. Then that's something that's memorable, isn't it?
Yeah, you'd think they would, and but someone said you should not send money through the post. This is kind of bribery, and it's like, it's not bribery. It's 10p for a phone. It's like a little gag, and it's like and I sent it just to 10 people just to see whether it would do anything. But anyway, so I was kind of getting desperate. I was going through all my film, all the and not really finding any jobs or anything, and getting some bad letters back telling me I was being an idiot. I came up with this idea that. And again, I probably wouldn't have said it unless it worked, and it ends up being a really good idea, because it's made me my whole career. But when I was at the LSE, there was a dark room at the LSE, so I'd got into taking photographs, little black and white photos, and processing them and kind of printing them on 10x8 sheets. And so I thought, I'm going to take a photograph of the Scala Cinema, the program, each month they would publish this kind of big A3 poster that was just like a calendar, but it looked really cool. It was like a really cool kind of poster that you'd stick on your wall, and you could see all the films that were coming up. So I used that as my kind of background for a photograph, and I had some little Super 8 films and little Super 8 reels. And a little Super 8 editing machine thing. So I put it all, I made this really nice kind of collage and a nice picture. And then I handwrote a note in it that I put inside this black and white picture. And then I took this black and white photo and processed it and printed it on these little 10x8 photographs, you know, like headshots. You know, actors' headshots used to come on these 10x8-inch photographs. So I had this really nice, beautiful looking kind of black and white photo with this handwritten letter. It was a bit of a joke, a bit of a kind of a jokey letter, but the last line of the letter was, so I had the photograph, but then I also had this idea that it was to do with the KitKat bar, you know, the KitKats, because KitKat tagline, and it's still the same tagline, have a break, have a KitKat, still the same, you know, back in the day, that's what it was, have a break, have a KitKat. So the last line of my letter that was inside this kind of photograph was, and since I've supplied the KitKat, you could give me a break. And so I used to send this photograph. And
that's amazing.
It was so, I mean, you know, I didn't tell anybody when I was doing it, but I had these 10, I printed off 10 photographs, and I got 10 little KitKats and those little hardback, please do not bend envelopes. And I sent it off to 10 people. And that was the one, that was the next day after sending that, I had 10 phone calls, 10 people.
Wow.
Every person that I'd sent that to phoned up and said, we have no idea who you are, what you do, whatever, but come in and let's have a meeting. And
yeah,
so it was the one, yeah, just the KitKat bar, the photograph, I suppose. Yeah, anyway,
that's amazing. That's so inventive.
It's, you know, you're kind of desperate when you don't know anyone in the business and you don't really know anything about it. Yeah, I was just trying these different things. So I went in to see quite a few people. I went in to see a sound editor and some production company kind of people. And again, it was really fantastic. It was really cool. And it was just to finally meet some real life people that were involved in this world. And one of the people, there was someone that called me up and said, oh, hi, you know, are you available to come in and have a meeting? And I said, yeah, sure. When do you want it? He goes, well, where are you? And I at the time I was living in Kilburn. And he said, yeah, I'm down near Sloane Square. Can you get here like in half an hour? And it was all a bit kind of quick. It was like, yeah, okay, sure, I'll get there in half an hour. And so, and it was just one of the names. I had no idea who this person was. It was just a name on you know, it was one of just a kind of a name. So I didn't know what they did at all, which that's not uncommon, because you know, that's how it appeared in the yellow pages. So I went down to this guy's office down just off Sloane Square, right on the King's Road, which is a really cheechy bit of London. I mean, it is now, but even back in the day, it was really lovely bit of London. And I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be great. And I press this buzzer, and this voice says, yeah, come on up, I'm on the first floor. And so I walk along this kind of dark, dingy corridor and then go into this room, and it's a tiny room. I was expecting something to be really glorious because the King's Road is really fancy, but it's this tiny little room, and there's a kind of a desk in one corner, a desk in another corner, then there's a little sofa, and there were loads of video cassettes and loads of scripts, and just, it was a tiny room filled with just stuff. And there was this one guy in there, and he was on his desk, there were about 8 telephones, the old kind of rotary dial telephones. And all of them were ringing. None of them would stop ringing. And I kind of said, oh, hi, my name's Manuel. And, you know, thanks for asking me in. And this guy says, listen, I haven't got any time for small talk. Here's a script, have a read of this, sit there and have a read of this, and we'll talk in a minute. And I was just thinking, this is really weird. You know, he barely said anything to me. He just sort of said, no, I've got no time for small talk. Here's a script. And it was the first time I'd actually been given a real script, a kind of a real life script. I'd never seen a real script. So I sat on a sofa and I was listening to this guy taking these phone calls, and he was doing stuff like, no, we can't pay Ben Kingsley 750,000. We've only got 500 in the budget. And then he put that phone, no, we can't. Michael Caine's far too expensive. We'll never do that. And he was just doing all these kind of weird phone calls. And I honestly thought it was a bit of, I thought this was kind of like a joke that someone had set me up or something, because the person I was living with was actually a good friend of mine, but he'd done really well in the city. And And I thought, and he knew I was trying to get a job in film, and I thought maybe he's done something here. But little by little, I was listening to this guy on the phone, answering all these phone calls, and just not really being able to answer everything. Just not being able to kind of manage everything. I looked around, and there were a few film posters on the wall, and there was one poster for Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, which was a massive movie at the time. It was really big, and looking at that poster, I could see his name was actually there, right on the poster, among all the other, the director and the producers, and it said casting director. And I thought, bloody hell, his name's right there on the.
What was the name of the casting director?
He's called Jeremy Zimmermann.
Oh, of course. Okay, yeah, that rings a bell.
Jeremy. And so anyway, after about half an hour of Jeremy taking all these phone calls, the buzzer goes again. The front door buzzer goes, and I've not said a word to him. I'm just sitting there, kind of reading the script, going, this is just so weird. And then the buzzer goes, and Jeremy goes to the buzzer, picks up the little intercom and goes, darlings, yes, come on up, I'm on the first floor. And then he puts the phone back in. And I know it takes about 30 seconds for them to get from the front door up into the office. And so he turns to me and goes, right, what's that script about? And I kind of start, oh, well, it's about this boy and they meet this girl and whatever, it was just like a standard script. And he says, right, and who should be in it? Who could play those roles? And because I'd been at the Scala Cinema for 3 years, and I knew, I've been watching actors, and I said, well, there's this person could play it, and that person could play this role, and this person. And he said, oh, great, now go and sit over behind that desk and just look busy, do some kind of filing. And so I went and sat in the corner. The door opened, and the producer and the director walked in, and Jeremy goes, darlings, I loved your script. It's one of the best things I've ever read. Let me tell you who we should go for these roles. And he started listing off some of the people that I'd mentioned. I mean, he had some other names as well, but he started kind of mentioning them. And I am really just thinking, what is going on? This is just insane. And I'm at this other desk. I have nothing to do. So I'm just kind of moving bits of paper and just trying to pretend that I'm supposed to be there. And Jeremy holds this whole kind of meeting with these people, and they love his ideas and all of that. And then when they leave, Jeremy just says, oh yeah, listen, can you hang around for the rest of the day? And so I hang around for the rest of the day. I discovered that his normal assistant, his usual assistant, was sick that day. So he just desperately needed somebody to come in and kind of cover and kind of help. And at the end of that day, he said, oh, will you come back tomorrow? So I came back the next day, and then every day for in fact for weeks and weeks, he'd just say, come back tomorrow. And it took about a month before I kind of said, is there any chance I could get paid? Any chance, because it was after about a month or so. And it was as random as that. I didn't know casting existed. I didn't know that was a job at all. And it was just really fortuitous that his assistant, this wonderful, she's called Andrea Clark, who's a fantastic casting director now in her own right, but she was just ill for a few days. Then she came back and I was able to learn a huge amount from Andrea. And actually Jeremy went away to, he was casting a job that was taking place in Amsterdam. So he left the office for probably about a month. So I could really learn a lot sort of behind the scenes helping Andrea about how things worked. And then Jeremy came back, and there was, and it was just ongoing. And it was just, it was so random that that first initial kind of foot in the door. Like I said, I didn't know casting was a job or it existed. I found that I could do it really nicely. I really enjoyed working with actors. I really enjoyed speaking with agents. I tended to be just really nice to everybody because I didn't know how long my job was going to last. I thought, if I'm really nice to certain agents, then maybe I can ask them for a job later on, but it never kind of got to that point. I used to just love meeting actors because it always just felt so magical that you just have this opportunity to play with an actor in a room and then meeting the directors and things. And these, and again, it's the first time, I suppose, I've met a real live film directors, real live producers. And I kind of learned that they're just human. They're not these gods that I'd kind of built them up to be. They're all human and they're all fallible, and they're all kind of wanting to do their best. And so, it was just this, thank goodness Jeremy asked me in on that particular day that the timing and everything kind of worked out.
That's an amazing story. I did notice you've done quite a few films with Jeremy. One of them being a sequel to Hellboy. Am I right in saying? And some incredible films. But what an amazing thing for him to be your first sort of contact.
Well, Jeremy's really, he's just been a fantastic mentor. He's just extraordinary. I think he's you know, I mean, he's hard to work with, if I'm really honest. He's hard to work with, but he was great. I mean, just he would give you so much responsibility very early on. And I worked with Jeremy for about 7 or 8 years to begin with, from that day onwards. And then I got headhunted by an agent. There was a really big agent that needed an assistant, and he called me up and goes, "Oh, I want you to come and work with me." And I thought it'd be really interesting, because it was my first proper job in the film business. I wasn't, you know, it's kind of like, I love casting, but it was my first job in it. So what if am I going to be any good at doing different things? And so this agent, because he was absolutely the top agent, had an incredible client list. He called up and said, "Oh, I want," and who also had this fierce reputation for being really, really difficult. And so he said, "Yeah, I want you to come and work for me." And so I spoke to Jeremy about it. I was really nervous, thinking, "Oh man, you know, let me just talk to Jeremy and see what he thinks." And he was so generous. I mean, he took me out to the Ivy for a celebratory lunch to say, "You've got to go and do this job. It's an amazing opportunity for you to sort of see the other side of the business, and don't worry about me, and you know, just, you know, that this is you kind of on your way." So I went off, and so, you know, he was brilliant at sort of not pushing me out, but sending me off to try different things. So I worked with the agent for a while, and which was, again, an extraordinary experience to sort of see the casting world from that side. And his clients were absolutely, you know, Oscar nominated every year and top notch. So sort of being part of that was fascinating. And then I managed to black my way into a job I was head of development for Guy Ritchie and Matthew Vaughn. That were just after they did Lock, Stock, and actually they just finished Snatch. I was able to join their company and be their head of development, which was finding new scripts and things for them to kind of mess around with.
Oh, wow.
And to do. And so and that was good. And so, you know, I kind of moved around a little bit in the business. And then in between everything, I've always loved traveling, and I've always loved going off on adventures. And so I'd kind of gone off on an adventure. And then I got a phone call from Jeremy when I was kind of in the middle of nowhere doing nothing much. And Jeremy called up, and it had been years. We always kept in touch. And in fact, we'd been on some mad adventures together ourselves, like in Costa Rica and different places. I mean, just as friends. But kind of years after me stopping working with him and kind of putting casting to the side, he called me up and said, "Oh, listen, I'm in South Africa at the moment, and I've got no one in the office that I you know, that I can kind of trust. That I want to, you know, I need someone in the office. And what are you up to?" And I was living in Poland at the time, which is a kind of a weird long story. But I said,
Wow.
I said, "Oh yeah, well I can get to London." And he said, "Okay, would you, yeah, just go and look after the office. It'll be like a week, maybe 2 weeks max," he said. And so I said, "Okay, yeah." I wasn't really doing much else, so I went down. You know, I stayed in his house. Jeremy's so amazing. He's like, "You know where my key is. You know where the house is. Stay in the house. Don't worry about it." So I went into the office, and it was Hellboy 2 was just coming up, and Guillermo del Toro, who's directing, was about to come into London. And so I was kind of trying to get things ready for Jeremy and calling Jeremy. Jeremy was in South Africa casting a film, I think for Neil Marshall, a director called Neil Marshall. And Jeremy was in South Africa, and he said, "Oh, I'm going to be here a little bit longer. So, you know, do you mind? Is it okay if you can just sort of, again, hold down the fort?" And I said, yeah, it's fine. But, you know, Guillermo's coming in to town, and don't you want to be here? And he can say, yeah, no, I will get there. I'll get there. But just kind of hold the fort. And Jeremy ended up staying away. It was brilliant. He stayed away for about 7 or 8 weeks, which in South Africa. So I was really able to, again, kind of get my foot under the casting table again, and kind of just kind of reconnect with a whole bunch of agents. All the agents were more or less the same. All the assistants that I used to know years before, they'd all kind of graduated up to become agents. So that was really nice. I still knew loads and loads of actors from my time as being a casting director. And you know, there was a new generation of actors, but it was easy enough to kind of learn who all of those guys were. And then it was brilliant because Guillermo did come into town, and I was able to do the first 2 or 3 days of auditions I was able to do with Guillermo del Toro. And I'm kind of going, I wasn't even doing any casting for a little while, and now I'm in a room with Guillermo del Toro doing some auditions. And then Jeremy did come back, and he sort of took over and did the rest, as he should do. But it was just a brilliant. It's a little bit like your first girlfriend. You know, casting was my first girlfriend, and then you sleep around a little bit thinking, "Oh, I need to play the field." So I tried these other jobs, but I did. I then by Jeremy kind of inviting me back and giving me the second bite of the cherry, it was that kind of like, "Oh man, this is where I belong. This is, you know, I had it right all those years ago when I first started working in casting. This is where I belong, and this is what I should be doing." And so after when Jeremy came back, I said, "Oh, listen, can I hang around a bit longer?" And he was like, "Yeah, of course, stay." So we did start. So that was my second kind of bite at it, really. And so I stayed again with Jeremy for a few more years, and we co-cast various things, and we spread certain bits of work out. And then really when my kids came along, I met someone and I fell in love and started having children. And I think when the children came along, it was kind of time for me to break away from Jeremy and start being a bit more in control of my own schedule. So that's when we so again, in a really amicable way, he was just brilliant at saying, "Yeah, no, this is your time, and you should this is now your time." So yeah, I've been really lucky, I think, because especially because I had two bites at it. I mean, the first time was amazing that I got that break, but then the second time, because I was kind of, I had kind of moved around a bit, and it's just so there's no plan.
It sounds really like a really organic, there's quite a nice way of doing it, because you weren't kind of like, oh, I need to do this and I need to achieve that and I need to, it kind of felt like it was a natural flow and you were just seeing what you liked and moving around and trying different things.
Yeah, I think I mean, I do look back and I do just think how fortunate, and also how fortunate I was that that the casting director, the person that responded was Jeremy, because Jeremy, again, just has a very different outlook on life. And I think he and he talked obviously about the job and how to do the job and all of those things and his relationships with producers and directors, but also, he was so, how he dealt with his family and his kids in particular, and just kind of they always came first, and how he was able to, he just showed a lot of, the work we do is sort of important, and people can see it as, think it's really important, but really it's not. We are kind of playing around, and we're not truly saving lives, but there are times where there's a certain kind of openness and to him that I hope I've sort of taken as well. I don't know, and he never seemed to worry about things, and there would always, there would be times where you weren't sure where the next job was coming from and things like that. But it was always kind of like, just trust it. Things will happen, and I really hope I've taken some of, I've taken a lot of that from him, I suppose. So it hasn't. It's kind of a strange. I mean, there was a desire to work in the film business, that was there, but not. There was, but just weird how it's all kind of worked out, and how, especially the second. I mean, the first go at it was great, but then the second go just went that random phone call again with Jeremy, and then realizing and just that allowed me to see that actually, yes, this is where I did fit in this whole kind of. The machine of filmmaking. This is the bit where I fit, was to do with working with actors. It's messing around with actors. It's kind of talking to directors, and then also dealing with agents, and knowing how to deal with agents, and all of that is. I like to think, touching wood, that's what I'm. That's what I'm good at, and so I've been really. I mean, God, how lucky. How lucky. I mean, they always say that it's like I don't feel like I've done any real work. I've not done a day of work in my life, because that's
the aim.
Yeah, it kind of is the aim, isn't it? I mean, how lucky are we that we get to muck around in this sort of business and do these things? And the key part of my job is to be in a room with people like you, with my dodgy little camera. I mean, you've seen it. Dodgy little
I've seen it for real.
Playing around, kind of, it's just madness that you can get. You can make a living doing that. So,
Well, with them. I mean, my first real insight to kind of seeing what it's like behind the camera as a casting director was obviously when you cast Northern Soul, and the casting process with that, and being there and actually reading with the actors, seeing them coming in and being really nervous, and like that was my first experience. Well, first and last. I've never really had to do that since. But it really opened up my eyes to, it doesn't matter who it is. They come in and like Antonia Thomas, who was eventually cast in the film. I remember her being visibly nervous, like almost shaking, because I was having to do this scene very close to her, and I could see that she was like, the paper was sort of doing this, and it's kind of mad, the stress that it puts the actors under, and how comfortable you feel the other side of it. Like you're trying to kind of make them feel comfortable, and I think that's one thing that you do really well. I'm going to butter you up now, but every time I've come in to read with you, you have given me the freedom to feel like we can play and we can be relaxed, because there's nothing worse than going into a room and you fluff the first couple of lines and they're like, start again, or someone's not very nice to you in the room, and it
Yeah,
just
but it
throws
just
you off.
means, yeah, I'd remember the early days of casting when I because there were times where there was still, I was kind of lucky, I think there was a sort of this transition period where, but there was a moment where there were times where you'd be in the audition room and the producer would be literally shouting at a director, and then the director would be shouting at the casting director, and then the casting director would be shouting at an actor or something, and there would just be this kind of show of power and show of authority, and it was so counterproductive. I could, there'd be just tension in a room, and everything would be so awkward. Everybody would be just on a knife's edge, and I just thought it's so counterproductive. And again, maybe because, again, like I said, the very early days, I didn't know how long my job was going to last with Jeremy, so I was just thought I'm just going to be nice to absolutely everybody, and it seemed to because it's a nice way of being, right? It's not a fake thing, it's just a good way. We're doing this job that's really fun, let's all enjoy it. And so hopefully I just kind of think, I mean, I did get a little bit of stress sometimes before an audition, especially with a new director, when you just think, God, have I brought in the right people? But it's really momentary. It's like a little fleeting thing. It's like, even if I've brought in all the wrong people and we don't cast anybody today, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? The worst thing is that we're going to have to do another day's worth of casting, and it's not that bad. So it's but yeah, I just think it's counterproductive to have these kind of tensions in a room, and ultimately it is about giving an actor actors are amazing, you are brilliant at, and if you create the right atmosphere for an actor to kind of play and feel that they're able to, that they can't really make mistakes, because you can't really make a mistake. I mean, it's just because people just have different choices or different ways of doing things, but it's not, you're never going to do something in the wrong way. You're just doing it in a different way to something else. And I think and I've worked with a lot of first-time directors, and again, I think it is kind of important for me to show some of those first-time directors to kind of be really playful with the actors early on during the process. So it kind of gives the directors permission. They kind of relax as well, and they go, oh, okay, so this is the fun bit of the job now. This is, I can play with actors, and I can make jokes with actors, and we can kind of have a laugh, and then we can start again and do serious things. And I think sometimes you do have to show directors as well that they're allowed to enjoy the process, and
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, because the directors are equally as nervous, I think, as actors, especially the more inexperienced directors or the younger directors. They're not quite sure how to work with you, and kind of, you're a mystery to them as well. And so it's I think sometimes you have to kind of just show them that everyone's human, and you're all just trying your best, and so yeah, it's the best bit of the job, I think, for me, the in the room bit. I mean, so as we were talking right at the very beginning, that's why it's so crucial. I don't want to be casting from self-tape. I need to be in a room with an actor, and you've got to feel that energy between different humans, not only just you different actors and the chemistry you have bouncing off each other, but just the director being there and how they communicate with you, and how you can communicate with the director, so that you all just know you're all doing the right thing. So yeah, no, it's good.
I have to ask, do you remember it was the most, for me, it was the most memorable moment in casting for Northern Soul was when Jack Gordon came in to read for his character, which he obviously got. I remember just being there with my mouth open up.
Yeah. This when he brought in something from the bin from outside, a bag, and he slammed it down. Oh man, genius, absolutely amazing. Yeah,
it was incredible. And the bin was from the hallway, wasn't it? And you could see that there was like another actor's coat got caught on it, and he was in the hallway going, that's my coat, and he's dragging in the coat in the beanbag, and Jack just went, fuck off, and just slammed the door in the guy's face. And I was like, wow, this is like, he's brilliant. In the character now already. Like,
yeah, just absolutely 100% committed to it, didn't he? Just committed. No, I remember that really clearly. Yeah, just like, whoa. And I love it when that happens. I love it because it makes me feel like I've done my job really well. And it's not me, it's obviously it's you guys, your talent that is doing stuff. But because I've picked you to come in, I'm kind of like, yeah, look at me, I brought this guy in. No, Jack was amazing. He's such
I love Jack. I think he's such a brilliant actor, and he doesn't ever not give full beans. He's all in. And like, there's a couple of examples when I've worked with him since as well, and but like, on Northern Soul, there's a few examples of what he does on set to like almost manipulate the situation, not in a negative way, but in a way where it tees you up with the scene. Like I'll give an example. We were doing this scene, and it wasn't Northern Soul, it was this other project where he's meant to be this villainous character. And in the rehearsal, the first thing he did, he came in and we were doing the scene, the beginning of the scene, and he just slapped me like across the face. And because we already know each other, we're like mates anyway, so it was, you know, he could get away with that with me, but I was like, you bastard. But then every time we shot the scene after that, I was waiting for him to hit me, but he never did it. So he only did it in the rehearsal to make me on edge the whole time we were shooting the scene. And I was like, I hate you, but that's genius what you've just done there.
Very clever. No,
yeah.
smart. Yeah, just a good. Yeah, I mean, just brilliant. Yeah, brilliant. Again, I think I've been lucky enough to cast him in a few different things as well. And just goes for it, and just does a brilliant job every single time. Just a brilliant actor.
I really enjoyed working with him. He was great. But one other thing I'd like to say is, with the way when I have come in and I've read things, that you're not afraid of bringing actors in that haven't. I know that I've come in for a few jobs with you that I have no prior experience of doing those sort of roles, but you've taken the risk and had me come in and read for something which is completely different to, say, when you cast me in Northern Soul, to say Beautiful Devils, which for me at that time was a pivotal moment, because I was getting cast and seen for Northern guys, for everything was like Northern. And then you had me come in, and it was obviously a London accent and a real arsehole character. It was essentially a Iago in Othello. And I was so like happy to be in there and doing this like completely different part. So I love that as well. I think it's great that you're open to, you see an actor and you go, well, I've seen him do this, but I'm sure he can also do this.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's one of those. I mean, in the early days, you know, you did. I don't want to say typecast, but you know, there was a way of kind of casting where you would, you know, you'd want to see that someone's done the role similar kind of. Oh, we've got a police person that we've got to cast. Have they ever played this authoritative role before? Yeah, right. Let's bring them in. But it was kind of really boring, and it did feel really limiting. And I think it is. And actually, self tapes have been one of the. In a weird way, self tapes is something that's helped me, because I can then ask lots of people to do different things, even if they've never done it before. And then you realize just how brilliant. I mean, it's just that kind of, it sounds really stupid, but it is. It's just understanding that an actor can have tremendous range, and you give someone an opportunity, they will run with it, and they will surprise you, just do brilliant work. And so it's just about that opportunity, giving someone an opportunity to just to have a go. And I think self tapes definitely helps with that. It's kind of, for me, it's a low risk environment to ask someone to try something, and if it works, then great, and if it doesn't matter. But then I don't need to show it to a director. But it's not even, it allows me to kind of mess around with gender and with ages and with nationalities and with all sorts of different things, where I can get a role that's written in a script as a certain, and described even sometimes in extreme detail as a particular type of character, but I can kind of ignore that and go, I wonder what it would be like if I flip that, or if I change that completely and just try something different. And I can ask people to self-tape for that role, and kind of just say, please ignore that it's a white guy in his 30s, and you make it your own. You know, you just make that role your own, and you can kind of see then that it just gives me that much more freedom. And then when I show things like that to a director, it's usually received really well. Directors love being challenged, and especially when they've lived with a script and lived with a character for a long time. They because most of the, I work mostly in independent film, and these things can take, as you know, they could take years and years before they get off the ground. And so a director will have an idea in their head of what a character is going to be like, and then if you show them something different. In fact, Jack Gordon in playing that role in Northern Soul, I think, was very different to how Elaine, the director, had seen that character. But Jack just kind of came in and made that role his own, and just kind of went, this is how it should be played. And it was kind of like, oh yeah, that's 100%. How I had it in my head. But it works really well. And I think, sometimes the really good directors, they embrace that and go, wow, I see this as a completely new character now. I've lived with this project for years, thinking I knew that character, but now it's something completely fresh and really exciting again. It's like, wow, great, let's see what else the actor can do. So I've kind of, I don't know, maybe it's as well because I'm from Manchester and because I don't have family in the film business and I haven't come from money and all of that stuff. I have a real chip on my shoulder sometimes about, I want to give people opportunities. It doesn't matter what drama school you've been to. It doesn't matter if you've, sometimes people weren't, sometimes producers, again, in the olden days, wouldn't want to see certain actors unless they had a certain number of credits behind them. But again, you think you're missing out on some amazing actors. Everybody needs a break. Everyone needs that first opportunity. And especially if an actor can do it in the room or do it on a self-tape, then that's a great first step. Then get them in a room and play with them around, and if they can still keep doing it, if they can still keep delivering a consistent character, then it kind of doesn't matter what experience they have or if they've been to a particular school or whatever. It should always be just about the talent and that interpretation. And if I'm really honest, it's only ever about that one particular role. Sometimes I'll find an actor that I know is brilliant at that one particular role, and no experience, no nothing, but that role they can absolutely nail. And that's fine for me. I don't need them to cast them in the next thing or anything. I want them to do that role. It doesn't matter if they have a career or not after that. It's if they can fill that role better than anyone else, then they should have that role. I've become less. I very rarely look at what kind of drama school or even what experience people have. If they can deliver on a self-tape and then deliver in the room, and it's usually a few different rounds, then we'll have chemistry tests and recalls, and if they can keep delivering, then it's all of it's a leap of faith. Getting an actor on set, even if they've got loads and loads of experience, they can still turn up on set and freeze or do something, just be strange. So it's always a leap of faith. But I think just give people opportunities to act and give actors a chance just to show that they're different sides, and it's and let them do it. Kind of isn't rocket science. You can see it in the performance. It's like, yeah, man, this guy gets it. He gets that role, and brilliant. Give him the role. Let him play it for real.
That's reassuring as well, because I think for young actors that are starting out now, like I look back at when I started, and if people ask me like, how do I cannot give any advice. I don't know. It's changed so much. And I think a big thing of it now, and I'm obviously, from what you've just said, I'm guessing that you don't read too much into this, but I've found that with a lot of jobs now, it's sometimes to do with how many followers you've got, your social presence. It's all these other things that when I started 15 years ago, it wasn't part of it. And that's kind of terrifying in a way.
Yeah, no, I think I would say that certainly for film and TV kind of drama roles, I think most casting people that I talk to, we rail against that whole social media aspect of it. I think it's something that distresses us. It's kind of like, no, that should make no difference. Maybe if you're doing a commercial, or if you're doing, I don't know, some kind of plays or something, or obviously reality TV or something like that. If it's something kind of different, then sometimes those things are important, or those things can be important. But I think for most drama and for, just a film or independent film, it's just, I remember a few years ago, producers were really, what are their numbers? And I would never kind of do that research. It's like, if you want to look at how many Instagram followers they've got, you can do that yourself, but I don't let it sway your decision of whether or not to cast someone. And I think people probably did. I think for a little while, there was a little window where people were getting cast because they were well known on certain kinds of social media. But then I think it always just kind of fell flat. I think it didn't translate into bums on seats.
Good.
Kind of. I think, so sometimes I feel like I'm a bit of a dinosaur when it comes to that, because I don't really do much social media myself, and I don't. And I really just don't. I don't want to know anything about the actors as they're coming in, and I don't want to know what they've had for breakfast or where they've been for dinner, what they're holidaying, and all of those things. It's kind of, I try not to. Well, I don't want to know any of that, and yeah, producers have stopped asking for those kind of figures, and maybe they're doing that themselves. But they've definitely. There was a little time period for a few months, maybe even a year, where it seemed to be everyone was talking about it. But I think. I really can't remember kind of recently when somebody said, oh, well, let me see their socials and let's see what
I'm glad to hear that, though. That's good. Hopefully it's moving in that direction.
Yeah, and I do talk to other casting people, and I think we're all kind of in agreement. Like I said, there'll be other kinds of projects, I suppose, where those kind of things might be more important. Certain, if you're doing a panto or something, some kind of, then maybe those things are, that's But I think for most film and TV, it's kind of, yeah, it shouldn't really make a difference. And this whole thing as well about just starting out actors. I mean, again, I think because I've had a long career now, even though I still feel like I'm the new kid on the block, I realize I'm now kind of I'm part of the establishment. I'm not this new kind of.
You're doing all right. You're doing all right.
Yeah, I genuinely, honestly, I used to think, I'm scrabbling around here trying to get my way in this business. But you kind of go, no, I've been around for a long time. But I think the benefit I've had is seeing this thing where you're auditioning actors that then go on and become, true kind of mega stars and A-listers, and you're auditioning them and they are not getting the role. And it's just, you're auditioning them before they're famous and before they get that big break. And it can be at any kind of different age. And it's like, and nothing changes. It's not that they suddenly become this incredible actor overnight. It's that they come in, they audition, they don't get the role. There's probably some guys that auditioned for roles that you've come in for, that you've got, that are now maybe bigger stars, but I
follow them all.
The roles. Yeah, I know.
I know what they're doing now.
They didn't get the role that you ended up getting, and it's so it's just that thing where you see
it's lining it up, isn't it? It's all luck, and the stars are lining.
You've got to have the talent, but then you've got to have that one project that hits, that does make a big, that does kind of propel you, and you can't really predict what that role's going to be or what that project's going to be. And yeah, like I said, I've seen some really amazing actors come in, not get the role, kind of do all right auditions, just not get it, and then they one thing hits, and suddenly that's it. They've become stellar. And it's happened with older actors as well. It's happened with actors in their 40s and their 50s, that again, you kind of see these guys that you've been auditioning for years and years and years, not getting the role, every so often getting a little job here and a little job there, and then they get one fantastic
and suddenly
role.
Boom. Yeah, well, I think that's the beauty of it. Like, you can, one day it can just change your life totally. One audition,
that one phone call and that one audition, and then that one role can completely change your life. And you just have to kind of cling on in the business and kind of not lose faith, and just kind of just appreciate that it can take time, but also everyone does need a break. Everyone needs that KitKat moment, don't they? They all need
I love that. I think that's great. I'm gonna try and see if there's any way I can use that. Something clever along those lines. That's very good. I like that. Especially in the day and age now, I feel like if you did something like that now, it would be even more like noticeable, because people are so used to getting an email, or so it's all too quick and too simple. If you actually wrote a letter and you sent them a KitKat and you did that, I think I don't know, it might work.
Give it a try. Yeah, send people KitKats.
You're going to be getting a KitKat through the post next week.
Yeah, I know. I love KitKats. You know what? I spoke to my mum about it a while back, and I think when she was pregnant, she used to always eat KitKats. When she was pregnant with me, she said, that was my chocolate bar of choice when I was pregnant with you. I don't know whether she was saying that just to kind of make me kind of go, mum, but she's
maybe that must be where it comes from then.
Maybe that's it. I've had it in me all along this kind of KitKat idea. I should buy shares, shouldn't I? I should buy shares. You should.
I feel like your avatar. I should get them to promote this episode now. Yeah, exactly. I was going to ask you, actually, everyone eats a KitKat differently. Obviously 2 parts, and then you've got the metal foil. I don't know why, it's this weird habit. I get it out of the thing, and then I always use my nail and break down the middle and then break them in half.
Yeah,
do you
good.
have a habit? Do you have a habit that you do when you?
That's good. Well, definitely I don't know if you can still find. I suppose you still do find them with the metal thing. Yeah, you kind of use your nail to
you don't get it every time now. It's
you don't get it. Yeah, sometimes
older fashioned.
Yeah, it's a bit more. It's a bit. Yeah, it's just a more of a plasticky thing. No, but actually eating the individual fingers. If I'm being really calm about it, I will kind of nibble the chocolate from all the edges until you end up with this sort of like the wafer bit that's chocolateless. But more often than not, I do kind of have a whole stick that I shove into my mouth and snap in half, and just allow it to kind of rest in my mouth, disintegrating horribly for a few minutes. But if I've got a bit of time, nibbling the chocolate from around it, and then nibbling the top and the bottom layer, so you're just left with this skinny little skeleton of
that's a solid way of doing it.
Yeah, that's the calm, mature. No, I wasn't going to say mature. There's no mature way of doing it, but different. Oh, I do. You
Now
know what?
you want a KitKat.
Yeah. It's like, damn, I wonder if we've got any KitKats in the children's drawer where we keep all the stuff for the kids. It's like,
You raid the children's
oh man,
drawer for it.
honestly, I am terrible for that. Yeah, no, for sure.
That's deadly, actually. Because normally I don't try not to buy anything like that unless if I'm out and I go into a corner shop or whatever. But I don't go to the supermarket and buy a massive bag of KitKats or anything like, because I know if they're there, I will eat them.
Yeah.
If
I
they're
have
not
no
there,
I have no self-control. I mean, I really don't. And so there is the kid. I've actually been quite good the last kind of month or so. I've been pretty good at kind of ignoring it. But sometimes you just go, I know it's there. I know that there's kind of things inside there that will hit the spot. But I have no self-control with anything like that.
I think this is a perfect way to end. I think on a high, talking about KitKats.
Nice.
But one thing I do want to mention quickly is one of my favorite films, which you cast, is Moon. I just want to ask you about that experience, because I mean, what an incredible film that is, and what an incredible cast.
Yeah, no, that was just unbelievable. I mean, again, I remember I was a space nerd when I was little. When I was kind of growing up, I was a real space nerd, and I used to write to NASA. A friend of mine told me, I mean, when I was like 8 or 9 years old, a friend of mine said, oh, if you write like NASA, JFK Space Center, Florida, just write to them and they'll send you stuff. And so I used to write to NASA, and they would send you get these beautiful envelopes back with, again, photographs of people on the moon and signed autographs and stuff. And then you could write to all the different space stations all around America, to NASA and in Texas and different places, and always you would get back. They must have had some kind of budget for PR or whatever. And
that's amazing.
Get back loads of stuff. So I was a real space geek, and when that script came in, it was just that you get loads of scripts all the time, and I'd actually met Duncan kind of really randomly. I had a friend that works in the music business, and we went to a Blur concert, and I think I'd met Duncan really briefly at this Blur concert, and a few years before. But it's and I think I can't even remember why the script came in. It was when I was working with Jeremy, and the script came in. But I think I said, "Oh, I'll read this one because I like space." And I remember just reading that script and being so blown away by it. It was an unbelievably brilliant script. It was so good. And then the boys came in. It was Duncan and his producer Stuart Fennigan, who's this incredible producer. They came in, and obviously Duncan just had. They'd built a kind of a virtual space station in his laptop, so you could kind of, he could walk around the space station. He had so much kind of material, all these books and all this sort of stuff that was that you just thought, God, yeah, these guys obviously know what they're doing. They're first of all, the script was just unbelievable, and then yes, they were clearly going places and clearly knew what they wanted. And so it was it was so awesome. I mean, it was just such a great I mean, it wasn't, as usual, it's never an easy casting. There were a few twists and turns to some of the stories of who was cast in it, but it was it's absolutely one of my best I think it was because it was one of my best jobs, and also going and visiting the set was such a thrill, to go and visit the set where the base had been built, and just sort of
where did they shoot it?
Shepperton. I think it was Shepperton Studios, and there was one day where I went in and just seeing they'd kind of built the space station, and I have to admit, it looked terrible. I was going, oh my God, it's so shoddy. It looks absolutely pants. I mean, it was horrible.
Oh, really?
But, I think most film sets probably do. You just go, oh, it looks so, people are
when it's not lit, I guess.
Yeah, and it's all going to look really wobbly. And there was I saw there was a scene where they show all these they're not coffins, but I don't know, these kind of where they put all the bodies, all the different clones going off into the distance. There was this kind of perspective scene, but it was all kind of fake. It was this tiny little room, and it was all painted so that it was like just this forced perspective. It was just this it was camera trickery, that it looked like this corridor went for miles and miles into the distance, but actually you were in a really small little room, and it was just the back wall was painted so it looked like it. And I thought, no one's going to buy this is going to be terrible. But you just trust, and then going to the
they
first,
did all right.
the first cast and crew, it was just like, wow. It was one of the first times, I think, where the finished film absolutely kind of exceeded my expectations, and it started from such a high level anyway, because the script was so good. But the finished film, I thought it just hit everything perfectly for me. It was, for me, one of those kind of perfect films that just the story, the way it was told, all the actors in it, everything. Oh, it was just great. And I mean, Yeah, really good. I hope they do some more stuff. I was lucky enough to cast Mute for Duncan and Stuart as well. They did a film called Mute that shot in Berlin, and that was sort of in the same world as Moon. So there's that, and I know they've got a few other things kind of cooking. But and Stuart, the producer, I mean, Duncan obviously is amazing, but I have to give credit as well to Stuart, the producer, Stuart Finnegan, because he's a young man, and but I don't know, instinctively he's just got this genius way about him, and just really understanding how to serve your director and how to I don't know, there's just something about that. I think when you find a good producer, they're worth their weight in gold, where they know, they know where to push money or not push money. And he was just, again, for someone that was kind of a young fellow, and especially during Moon, he just knew what to just knew how to do the job really well.
That film is just it's just a beautiful film. It looks incredible, the cast's great, and I mean the same with Mute actually. And I remember I came in to read for Robert Sheehan's part in that. I remember the makeup.
Oh yeah.
Asking my girlfriend about the makeup. But like the way you cast it, having someone like Paul Rudd in Mute play completely against type, I just really enjoy it when you see a casting director taking risks like that with an actor who's amazing. And he obviously can do it, but no, like the audience can be quite narrow-minded, be like Paul Rudd, but then he was brilliant in that film.
Yeah. I can't really take credit for that one. That was the American casting director.
Come on, just say you.
But that was a good collaborative effort. I think that whole film. But it was, but again, yeah. I just like I said, I hope I hope I get to work with those guys again. There's a few special ones along the way, aren't there? The thing is, though, to be honest, I think every single job is there's very few. If I'm really honest, I think I can remember one job that I did years ago, and it was a TV job, a kind of a network TV job, and that was really hard, and I didn't enjoy it. But I think apart from that, almost every other job, there's always joy to be had, because you're helping create somebody. Even if the film doesn't kind of quite work at the end of it, you are kind of just part of that process of helping somebody bring a vision to life, and involving all sorts of different people and different disciplines, from costume to editing and sound, and it's just you're a little part of that, and it's amazing to be able to be part of that world. I mean, I can't believe, from a young lad growing up in Manchester, I cannot believe that this is how I make my living in this. I mean, I would never have known when I was a kid that this is what I would be doing, and that I would be able to do this kind of thing. So it's I do every day. I thank my lucky stars that I'm able to do this, that I don't have to have a real job. So it's it's good.
I love that. That's what we want to hear on this podcast. I think with the audience, like we have a lot of people that listen to this, like trying to get into the industry, or they're taking their first steps, and to hear from someone like you that's very established, done some great films, and still doing it and still loving it. I think it's obviously very inspiring. So thank you, Manny. I really appreciate you coming on here. And it's just great to have a chat. And
it's nice to see you.
It's been a long time.
It has. It's been far too long. I know. I've got. It's kind of weird. I did forget about the pandemic bit. There were like almost.
I know, the 2.5 year dent in.
Because I was there, kind of going, why have I not seen Elliot? Actually, why have I not seen him? And it's like, oh no, wait a minute. It's okay. We have got.
There's been a global pandemic.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's been that, hasn't there? So that's
the only thing that will stop me from succeeding is a.
No, it's great. Oh well, thank you for asking me, and it's
it's a real pleasure.
Catch up with you. Really, really good, man.
Can I ask you one more thing?
Yeah, of course.
This is the kind of not clickbait, but like it's a tradition, and I always ask and sometimes I get told not to by the PR. They're like, no, you can't ask that. But I want to ask if you've got any moments while you've been casting, any embarrassing casting experiences, something that will make the audience cringe that you're willing to share with us.
Well, I don't know if it's. I have got. I mean, I do have a story, but it's not really it's a little bit to do with me, but it's a bit more to do with Jeremy. And it's we were casting in fact it's just a weird, it was brilliant, it was just a weird thing. We were casting something, and actually, to put it all into context, Jeremy, I think there was a time he'd been nominated for an Emmy, which is extraordinary, and he was going to LA, but he was going to go to LA in an afternoon, and we were casting a kind of slightly strange horror story that was shooting in Switzerland, that was based on an old fable, anyway, so Jeremy, because he was going to LA in the afternoon, he was doing the morning session of the casting, and then I would take over and do the afternoon session with the director. And it was a semi-improvised scene, and the scene was that there was an actress was supposed to have been kind of blockaded and blocked into a little hut, and she had to kind of fight her way out of it. And so I went just before lunch. I was just to see the last person of the day. I went into to kind of see how they were blocking the scene and what Jeremy was doing and how it was all going to work. So I was there just the last one before lunch, and then we would do that. Then Jeremy would head off to the airport, go off to LA for some big award ceremony or something, and then I would do the afternoon session with the director. So I'm kind of sitting there in the room, and it's all kind of good. And then so the actress, it's all set up there. So Jeremy kind of just had to kind of physically block her from getting out, and the actress kind of starts. The scene starts, and she's flailing around, and she's really getting into it, and she whacks Jeremy on the nose and breaks his nose, whacks him in the nose. Blood starts pouring out. Everyone's there going, what just happened? What the hell? So she's in a state, she's like, I'm so sorry. Blood is pouring out of Jeremy's nose. We're at Spotlight. And so he dashes out, goes through the waiting room that's filled with actors. All these actors are looking at him going, what the hell? And goes into the bathroom. And the receptionist, the kind of person that receptionist at Spotlight was first aider. She knew exactly what to do, and kind of went in and helped him sort out his nose. And it was just this trail of blood all through Spotlight. This trail of blood from the thing. The director, even though he was directing this film, was really squeamish. He hated the sight of blood, so he was freaking out. And so it was just one of those things. It's like, oh my God! And then I'm there thinking, I've got to do a whole afternoon worth of this as well. It's like, and my nose is not small. It's like my nose is a proper big target. So it was awful. So
they're like, oh.
Yeah, it's like, what's going on? Jeremy's got to go get on a plane this afternoon. Is he still going to manage to do that? Is this his whole LA trip going to be? It was just one of those moments, I think, in an audition that you just, it was just not. It didn't go. I suppose it was out of control, but it was just one of those moments. Was like, I mean, thank God Jeremy did get on the plane. He did manage to sort out his nose. He had this massive bandage and kind of black eyes, but he went to the Emmys.
Oh wow!
And
please tell me the actress got the role.
No, she didn't. Unfortunately.
That would have been great.
Really mortified. No, I know.
Yeah. Oh no.
And I think it was because the director, in particular, we had to move rooms at Spotlight. He was freaking out because of all the blood. And I know, I mean, there were loads of actors for other projects there. And again, for them to sort of see something like that, you can see that it.
They'd be like, what? They had some sort of punch up in there. You think?
No. So I think
that is mad.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, it's definitely the thing that sticks just during the audition process.
That's brilliant.
Strange things that stick.
I love the fact that he had to then go off, fly to LA, and go to an award ceremony.
Exactly,
as well.
Kind of sitting there
on the cake.
On camera, yeah, I know. Just with all this, and he had this kind of weird bandage, sort of, a poor guy.
Oh wow, he actually had the whole, and then obviously you can't cover that up, I guess.
Yeah, so it looked like he was. It looked like he'd been in a proper fight. It was just that little split second of, the last person of that he was doing that particular. He'd done the whole morning without any incident. The fact that he had to get on a plane that afternoon and all of that, it was every single little thing was just like, oh no, it was the worst thing that could have happened. But anyway,
perfect. Brilliant.
Yeah, good. So, at least we've avoided that. I think whenever I've had you in the room.
I mean, I've never. I did take maybe a bit too literal when I saw Jack do that in his audition. After that, for about a year, I was going in rooms and just destroying the rooms, throwing things. I've calmed down now, but sometimes it's like that though. You kind of just get a bit carried away, I think.
Well, that's it. Yeah, I suppose so. That's acting for you. That's
it is. Yeah, we're all very dramatic. That's the problem. But thank you again, Manny, and all the best, man. All the best with all the future projects.
Look forward to seeing you in the room. Can't wait to see you in the room at some point.
Yeah, fingers crossed. All right, mate. Take care, man. See you in a bit.
Bye.
Thank you to our guest, Manny. If you enjoyed this episode, please review and share this podcast. It makes a huge difference. We're also on Patreon, TikTok and Instagram if you'd like to support us and get more content.
It's a life and film, and you better come back next month to a life and film, to a life and film, to a life and film, to a life and film.